Howdy, everyone. This is Sharon for another Conscious Sharon moment. And so, for this Conscious Sharon moment, we will continue the conversation of self care you. So, self care you too. And so, also as a reminder, these conscious sharing moments, they're spontaneous, they're insights, they're observations, they're aha moments, they're revelations, and just pretty much things that I kind of call their life hacks. Things that make you go, and to be able to really go within yourself, to think about more, reflect more, and more so to do and be different. And so, remember to like, remember to share, and also go ahead and kind of in the comments and let me know your thoughts about the topic today. And also remember just to turn on the bell so you will know, when these things are come on because of the fact they're spontaneous. And and taking care of you too. I want to explain why they're spontaneous too, because we as humans are adaptable. But at the same time, as humans, we don't like change. So sometimes having something the exact same time on the exact same day can be very beneficial. You can look for it. But just think about when it doesn't happen. Sometimes you're like, oh man, I was really looking forward to that. But also, it teaches us not to adapt to change. And that's one thing, like how much I love structure, but at the same time, I can also see myself when that thing doesn't happen. It's like when changes occur. And so and it's a part of taking care of you when it comes to changes, when it comes to adaptability. I talked about adaptability and being able to adjust in the past. So listen to a previous conscious share moment regarding that. But yeah, that is one of the reasons because when it comes to this, because certain things may come to my mind at the time, some things I may have ahead of time. And sometimes it kind of depends on how my day is going, when I'm able to fit it in, and things like that. But the intention is definitely to share some things. And my goal is to be it more often, at least 3 to 5 times a week. It used to be that way in the past and kind of dwindle down. So definitely making it a priority because I really enjoy these things. I enjoy talking to you all. I enjoy sharing, all of this wisdom, knowledge, information, type thing. Because at the end of the day, you never know what someone is experiencing, and we all going to experience something at some time in our lives. And one time, I didn't used to think that. I used to think, oh, sometimes things just happen, but things really do happen to everyone. It's for all of our growth, all of our development, and as they say, lessons and things like that. So, by being spontaneous, that is good for your self care as well. And so, let's talk about that. Take care of you too. So let's say at work, and there are things that happen, depends on where you work, spontaneous all the time. How do you accommodate that? How do you adjust to that? And then especially when there's structure, because of course all jobs have, these policies and procedures that we must abide by. Sometimes there can be some little gray areas, depends on what they are, depends on where they're coming from. But then sometimes some people, especially when it comes to policy, I say those are definitely have to do. I would say that for the most part, because they usually come from government entities and accreditation entities and things like that. But when it comes to the procedures, they're more of the how to. Some of them are based on, I guess you could say, experiences or things that have been tested, but not always. But there's always an open door because no one can predict, like, you can't fit everything into it. I put it like that. And so, but I've seen individuals who will really stick by a procedure, a how to the letter, even though it is evident that it's not working for that particular theme, for that particular situation, or whatever it may be. So the question is, how do you take care of yourself in those situations? If you're on the receiving end, or you're the person, of course, if you're the person, you may not even realize what's going on within you. But if you're able to fall back and say, hey, what's going on with me? How come this thing isn't working, but I'm going to stick to it. A perfect example that just came to mind. Several years ago, I was getting physical therapy after an accident, and went to check in, and by this time, maybe my fifth, maybe sixth visit. And the front office staff, and it wasn't the regular person, it was someone different. And that person was like, hey, I need for you to pay the copay, which was, I think, $50. But I'm like, but I never had to pay. From day one, I never had to pay. So I'm like, what is this? And I had to go there like 12 times. So, but anyway, this person was like, well, you have to pay. And then someone, another patient say, well, I'll pay for you. And for me, it was more of the principle. I was like, well, I never had to pay. I just pay on the back end. And they were like, no, you have to pay. And so they say, oh, well, you can call customer service, but customer service is just going to always go whatever the policy is, which is, for the most part, most people do have to pay. But for whatever reason, again, I never paid from day one. That's what I was sticking with. And I'm glad they set it up that way. But this person, and then the other thing is, I work for the hospital. I work for, the company where I was going, different department and all that. But then that even made it worse, because she was like, oh, well, if you work for them and then, you just pay your copay and you get your money back, but sometimes people don't know what's in your pocket at that time. And that really wasn't the issue, at least I don't think. But the main thing is, she was so gun-ho to stick to that. She didn't look into, because I kept repeating, I never had to pay. Day one, I never had to pay. Then finally, because I even asked, I said, well, let me speak to the physical therapist. She refused. She refused to allow me to speak to the physical therapist. And so I called customer service. They really just, backed her up. Finally, actually, the people, who was it? Another individual came, pretty much the checkout person. The checkout person came, happened to see, oh, Miss, Sharon, oh, you're here. And they're like, oh, no, and they went on the computer and they showed that I didn't have to pay. And she was like, oh, well, I didn't know that. But my thing is, she was so stuck. What was it about her that made her so stuck on following, that procedure? Yeah, it's always been that way, but she wasn't listening to me either. I can say I wasn't listening to her, but I've had different people to check me in, and however they had it set up, made me special, where I did not have to pay. So my point is that when it comes to, again, our self-care, I had to take care of myself, because I was taking a deep breath. And then on top of that, of all days that happened, it could not have been like on the perfect day of words. Really, because I had some other things going on. But my point in saying that, what is it about? It could be me, it could be you, about any of us, that will make you really go to bat for something that isn't working, even though you could say, oh, well, that's the policy, or that's the procedure, but she wasn't listening to me, because they did put something in the system where I didn't have to pay. And she was just so gun-ho with that. And so my point is, part of us taking care of ourselves is taking that deep breath, meaning that things are not going to always go the way that we think. Another example is that I used to work for a call center, and and I just say, just if you working with people, you're doing customer service. So I just say in general, it wasn't just the call center, but the call center made me pay attention to it more. But just in general, I really do have a habit. If someone tells me something more than once, and especially by a third time, the second time I'm like, okay. And the third time, even if it's not, as long as it's not like breaking a law or anything like that, as long as it's not that, even if it's not the procedure, I will find a way to, if I can accommodate that person, do that, or at least find an answer. Because what I see, or what I'm listening to, or what I'm hearing, that they're experiencing something different than what I'm accustomed to, meaning that nothing fits in a box. If you stick with the box, then to be honest, you're really going to be locked out your entire life. So, what does all of this have to do with you taking care of yourself? It means taking a pause, meaning being able to adjust, meaning to be able to read between the lines, not to be stuck in just in one way of doing something, to be open. Like, yes, it's good to have an expectation or to be able to look forward to something, but to still approach life, to approach a situation still with your mind open, your heart open, even if that thing doesn't happen. And so, and not to have like an attitude like, oh no, like sometimes you can really be hoping for something, and it's okay to be disappointed. I'm not talking about that piece, but not outright mad and upset and things like that. And usually when that happens, that's another story, or shall I say, another conscious year moment. And again, the main thing is that, are you able to adjust? Are you able to pause? Are you able, it's almost like, are you stuck in the policy and procedures, or are you, you know, can open the door and see, is there something else inside? Because especially when it comes to, those procedures, those how to, there's a million ways of doing that. Just that they're just like, okay, these are the best ways to do this. This is what we have found. And then sometimes they are add things like that. I've worked at places where I discovered something. They're like, oh yeah, Sharon found another way of doing something. So let's put this in the procedure. I was like, oh, I didn't want that in the procedure though. However, so in going into the new year, look at the things that you may hold on to. Look at the things, or shall I say more so, look at the things that you can look forward to. Look at the things that you can fall into with ease, so that your life can really be of, more of uplifting of joy, and to be able to look at everything that comes in your way, more so as opportunities, and not in disappointment. Because when you're kind of stuck in this is the way it's always been, this is the policy is, or no, 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 no. I mean, almost like that front office staff. And actually, I don't even think she worked in front office, to be honest. I think the front office staff was off, and she happened to, she usually would be the one that kind of help out, but still, in not knowing, say, hey, well, let me look. Well, this person seems, pretty stern, in which I was refusing not to. There's another backstory that goes behind that. But the main thing is that, how are you able to adjust? And the other side of that, someone can say, well, hey, Sharon, you didn't adjust. You could have paid. But the thing is, I always do adjust. And so that was a moment for me to not give in, and to not avoid something uncomfortable and easy. Because I usually, like to have, quote unquote, the peace. I'm usually the one to say, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and pay it, even though I get my money back and things like that. And, especially in bringing attention from the outside. I mean, I wasn't loud. I was just saying, and so that's the other side of it too. Someone, you all could be saying, well, hey, Sharon, you didn't adjust. You were sticking to that you weren't going to pay. And actually, that really wasn't, that came to my mind, but I was like, no, like if somebody would have explained to me, oh, well, there was an error in your file and you should have been paying, then that would have been different, but that wasn't the case. I mean, they really did do me a favor. But the other side of it, I did make an adjustment when I can't say that I took a deep breath at that particular time, because believe me, I felt the heat in my body. But I really did made a decision not to give in, because majority of the time, like, just to, we call it to keep it peace, but it's not always keeping peace if we're always giving in, as well. And so that's the other, I guess you say, point of making. So in making adjustments, make an adjustment of advocating for yourself and standing up for yourself. And that's what I was doing in that particular time. It wasn't about right or wrong. And even though you could say, oh, well, there was a pattern, because, I could say, oh, well, I've never had to pay, but again, if someone could have explained to me why I would have had to pay, and why that was different, then that would have been so. So again, when it comes to life, when it comes to experiences in life, what are you able to make adjustments? Again, that's a self-care move in order for you to advocate for yourself, in order for you to have a voice for yourself. And then also it's a self-care, strategy or move to be able to accept differences, or to be able to investigate and be able to hear, to be able to see. And so what are those things that you're doing for yourself, so that you can be with yourself and be with others, and not take offense, to others, and to think that just because, the rule book says. But what about the rule book of life? The rule book of life really have no rules. They probably do, but not in the way that we think. But they're always changing. So how can you adjust to the rule book of life? So we're going to end there. So thank you for watching this Conscious Sharing moment. And remember to like it, share, and also visit the website at www.affirmholisticnetwork.net, and that's holistic with the W, for updates, for events, for apparel as well. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from you. So have a great day.